Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to this Sitecore and Sagittarius webinar entitled What is Digital Personalization and Why Should I Care? I'd like to introduce you to our speakers today. Chris Nash is a business optimization consultant at Sitecore. Christopher is the co-author of the book Connect, How to Use Data and Experience Marketing to Create Lifetime Customers, is a curiosity-driven analog and digital marketer who frequently hangs out at the corner of business and technology. In his current role as Senior Business Optimization Consultant at Sitecore, Chris advises customers on strategies and tactics for creating connected customer experiences that produce successful business outcomes. We also have Paul Stephen, CEO at Sagittarius. With over 20 years in marketing and developing websites since 1996, Paul is one of the UK's leading experts on digital marketing. He oversees award-winning agency Sagittarius and often lectures and consults within the industry on digital marketing related subjects, and has a particular interest in skills in the travel and tourism sectors. Working with many of the world's leading travel brands and also having also been a director of our tour operator for several years, his sector knowledge is formidable. The session will run for 25 minutes, and once they are over, we will open for Q&A. Please submit your questions on the chat box of your GoToWebinar console at any time, but they will only be answered at the end of the session. Please, Chris, over to you.
Thank you very much, Talia, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining today. Let me just add that in my role as a business optimization consultant at Sitecore, I get the opportunity to work with a variety of different organizations working in a variety of industries, definitely including the travel industry. With my background in digital marketing, I get the opportunity to develop best practices and to work with organizations as they leverage, let's say, optimization capabilities such as personalization. What I want to do today is share some of what I think of as the essentials when it comes to understanding what personalization is and how to work with personalization in general, and with an angle towards Sitecore. So in our presentation today, in collaboration with Paul, what I'll do is I'll cover what I think of as the personalization essentials, including some how-to things and looking a little bit into product. And Paul will speak about personalization in the domain of travel, and he'll provide customer examples and dive deep into one customer example in particular and really put a business context on it. So with that, let me start up with a question. It's a rhetorical question, of course, and that is, what shapes our experiences? This may sound a bit like an existential question, but actually a lot of new things are happening when it comes to how we as digitally connected customers in the age of the connected customer have the many experiences that we have on a daily basis. So no doubt, with the transformative shift to digital, that's taken place over the past, 5 years or so, what it is that shapes our experiences is changing. And, certainly with the emergence and, the pervasiveness of digital channels, and the ever increasing variety of digital devices and things, more and more technology not only shapes context, but technology also creates context. And I think of this somewhat like our willingness to interact, as connected customers, as we all are, as connected individuals, our willingness to interact with technology because we get value from these interactions is a phenomenon that I believe you want to tap into when it comes to harnessing personalization. Sometimes I think of this as the, technology drives context phenomenon. And when it comes to travel, the steps in the buyer journey and the travel experience journey and the post-travel experience journey, with these, you have the opportunity to tap into this technology context phenomenon. The more contextual you can make the steps that I show here, the more potential you have as marketers to increase sales, increase conversion rates, increase customer satisfaction, grow loyalty amongst customers, and of course generate recurring business. So what I think is quite essential, and what I wanted to sort of kick off with here and make the point, is that our willingness to interact digitally, the digital touches, creates context, and at the same time these interactions provide the data that fuels personalization. And in my observations working with customers who are using personalization, I increasingly see interactions, a variety of types of interactions being designed into the user experience. And as I say, the data collected from these interactions serves to fuel personalization and context. And this is a kind of a theme that I'll dive deeper into here today. So with that, what I want to do next is I want to walk through a personalized web experience, and I want to focus on what I believe are the essentials. But let me start with a definition of digital personalization, as you see here. And you may have seen, likely have seen different definitions of personalization, but I'm including this here because I want to highlight the part about in the moment. Working with personalization, it's essential to be able to detect behavior and actions and subsequently, provide, relevancy as an experience unfolds. And if you think about it, the closer that we get to making decisions, and very often we're using, digital channels and devices, the closer you get to making a decision, the more revealing your data is of your intent. And that's a phenomenon that you want to tap into, as well as when your journey begins as well, and I'll talk about that. But I want to emphasize this because I do believe that the company, where I see companies being successful at personalization, is that they are, in a way, sort of quote unquote going to the trouble of building interactions into experiences so that they can capture data and use that data in the moment to create relevancy. And I want to try to illustrate that a little bit here with a short example of a walkthrough of personalization, let's say website personalization. What I want to do is first I want to show a non-personalized experience. Just take a minute or so, 1-2 minutes, and then I want to show a personalized experience where the intent of the visit is to increase, the context and the relevancy. Of course, when I say context, I mean, the meaningfulness and the value for the person receiving the experience or having the experience. So here, if I sort of kick off a little video clip here showing a visit to a travel website. And on this website I can plan, book, I can view featured destinations and so forth. And as I do this, you see a sort of like a default experience. This is a sort of non-personalized experience. Notice that the call to action here, it says hi there. It's kind of a generic call to action. This is a demo website. Notice that in the middle of the page it says search for flight, also a generic call to action, as we often see. Now here we're going to start the sort of the personalized version of this experience now that I've shown the non-personalized experience. And I want to start with a channel here. So this is a visit to the same site. And it's quite, as I said, it's important that we want to tap into the interactions that visitors reveal as they interact with content and the types of things they can interact with, campaigns, searches, and so forth, and use those interactions to create relevancy and to drive conversions and so forth. So here is an example of a Google search page. As you can see, I have generic results and I have organic results, and I have advertisements and so forth. This is sort of think of this as representative of any channel that you may use to attract visitors to your website or whatever the digital channels might be, app and so forth, and you want to think about that intent and try to tap into that. So here there's an ad about Jetstream, which is the demo website I'm working with, and Frequent Flyer. And from a visitor's point of view, their intent is to get the benefits of being a frequent flyer. From a marketer's point of view, you're looking to acquire members to a program so that you can basically cross-sell and upsell. So as this experience continues, and as I click in from this channel, from the online ad, you'll see that on the landing page, remember that previously what I showed was, get that off there, yes, previously what I showed was the default call to action said, hi there. But now notice as this experience sort of evolves, that we're now being relevant with regard to the campaign that attracted the visitor to the website. It's a small example, but it's representative of what's possible. So the landing page shows a personalized campaign, and then the pages that the visitor interacts with also have the ability to show the personalized experience. So you see here in the middle of the page, the same sort of visual and call to action is shown. And as the experience continues to the destinations page, that rather than seeing the default content, again, there's the personalized view of the content of the campaign that attracted the visitor. So using relevancy like this, you're able to create more value for the visitor and get them to convert, perform the different conversions that you're interested in. And here, we're showing how a conversion can take place. And as I mentioned earlier, we want to collect different types of interactions. So here we see that not only am I able to sign up, but I'm also able to specify some preferences that I may be interested in. So here I'm asking for on this travel website, what are your interests with regard to the things that you see here? So skiing could be one of those. As the experience progresses and as this visit progresses, we're able to use in the moment the data that's revealed and collected to create more relevancy. So now the home page changes to create a more relevant experience for the visitor based on their preferences and what attracted them, and that sort of continues as the visit continues. And here we're giving some interactions that again create more relevancy and more meaningfulness for the visitor, so that we can encourage more engagement and more of the interactions that help to drive the business for you. So that's a simple example of a website personalization journey. And later, when I'm going to wrap up and how I actually created this and how you can actually test and measure the efficiency of doing this. So with that sort of example of the definition of personalization and sort of a quick idea of an example of website personalization, let me sort of put this in the context of travel a bit. So I'm citing here a piece of research that was published in Travel News magazine, where those who work in the travel industry were asked, what are the technologies that they felt would be most disruptive within the travel industry. Personalization was voted as the most significant of these technologies. And what I thought was interesting was that what marketers within travel industry believe is that the behaviors and preferences of travelers are really sort of the gold or the source to use for personalization, sort of the most powerful source of leveraging personalization and working towards creating new types of experiences and sort of disrupt, and the capability to disrupt. And certainly that sort of is it speaks to the strategic nature of using personalization as a differentiator within the travel industry and of course other industries. And at the same time, other research indicates that there is sort of a hardcore financial aspect to why to use personalization. And so here I'm showing this sort of piece of research from eConsultancy that showed that of companies that are using personalization, the companies that do use personalization report that on average they see a 90% sales uplift for personalized web experiences. So these are sort of some of the fundamentals and some of the elements of a business case should you be looking to create a business case for working with personalization. Now, there are, of course, businesses that do have sort of seen the light and have developed the capability to harness personalization to increase business results, and EasyJet is certainly one of them. But in general, research shows that about a third of businesses are able to successfully leverage personalization to truly drive and create a difference in their business and drive sales increases and conversion increases. And at the same time, research also indicates that most companies face barriers in their efforts to leverage personalization. So here is a piece of research that I came across from Forrester. It was published by Forrester in a report called the Contextual Marketing Imperative. And this report was based on data from surveys of 1,200 global consumers and also 200 advertising and marketing professionals at organizations of more than 500 employees. And I think these are the really good kinds of research where data from consumers and advertisers is combined. Well, I think one of the revealing things about this research was that is the sort of you know, the idea that personalization is difficult because the data that you want to get access to, and remember I'm really focused on, you know, using data in the moment of a given, you know, visitor and customer's experience, but getting access to that data is difficult because the data is contained in different silos. And I think that a lot of marketers and organizations recognize this barrier and see it as a key barrier to overcome. And I'm going to talk about how you can do this in a little bit. And just to sort of fuel the, you know, why is this important, is that, well, if we look at the sort of other side of the coin and look at marketers who do have access to the type of data that they can use in the context of customer experiences, that when they do have access to, let's say, single customer database, they report that they have an increased ability to create, you know, useful scenarios with regarding a single view of the customer. So this notion of having access to data to, let's say, gain marketers' single view of the customer is one of the real essential capabilities that that I feel is important and absolutely a success parameter to work with personalization. So thinking about this idea of a single view of the customer, imagine the capability to have you know, something like I'm showing here. You know, it may look like a CRM record, but it's actually what we think of as a customer experience record. So this is a record and the ability to this is a record and a capability that gives you the possibility to collect data from the different touch points for the different types of experiences and to consolidate that data for each unique individual customer and potential customer that interacts with your digital channels. So not only are you able to collect this data, but you want to be able to use this data in the moment. But the type of data that you're able to collect is from across the different touch points, across the different channels that you may work with, you know, combining, you know, email, social, apps, interactions from offline, and certainly, you know, channels such as web and mobile. So this capability to create the marketer's single view of the customer is another essential ingredient. And then, of course, using this this data in the moment in the context of personalization is, of course, the sort of like core of the core capability. And so here I want to just shed a little bit of light on, with this ability to have marketing single view of the customer in a platform and in a database where you're able to use it in the moment. What are some of the ways that you would use the data, and how can you think of the different types of data to use when, during, let's say, as different customer experiences evolve. So this idea of building the single view of each individual customer through collecting data from things like website visits, mobile visits, and as website visits and so forth evolve and progress, where conversions occur, behavioral profiling matches may occur, outcomes may have been reached, campaigns are used and for different visits and so forth. So the ability to collect a variety of data and the ability to connect the different types of data from the different types of resources that I'm showing here. So this ability to create marketing single view of the customer especially for customer experience data is essential. And then the ability to use this data in the moment, let's say throughout the life cycle of the customer journey, so that you want to use the right kind of data at the right time to get the right kind of response. So we could imagine that I have a single view of a customer who is looking to book a travel, a trip from a travel website, and the types of, let's say, customer life cycle phases that this visitor might go through are shown here: inspiration, consideration, purchase, utilize. Just sort of just very generic, and not meant to be representative of all businesses, but just for the sake of the example. But what's essential is that with this capability, you want to think about the different types of data to use to create the right kind of results during the life cycle of the customer. So here we talk about in-the-moment data. So this is data that occurs, let's say, when a visitor visits a website by clicking on a campaign, as I showed before, on the type of interactions that they may take, sort of top of the funnel types of interactions. So they view certain pages. They may view a set of pages that would reveal a behavioral profile. In the moment, this type of in-the-moment data is very powerful, and we would recommend that you would want to use in-the-moment data across all of the phases of the customer life cycle. As the, let's say, experience and interactions with the brand progress, a visitor may reveal different types of data. So for example, profile data could be explicit data. So in the idea that I'm searching, or this person is searching for a trip using a travel website, after being attracted and inspired, they may be willing to reveal some explicit data. So they may be willing to join fill in a web form, or join a club, or fill in a form requesting more information to be sent to them or emailed to them using explicit data. So as the experience progresses, historical data could be used as the experience progresses to help influence the purchasing decision. So once preferences are understood and as a number of visits have occurred, historical data is accumulated, and that can be used all the way back from what originally attracted the visitor, what were some of the initial inspiration sort of decisions and so forth. That historical data could be used to help influence the purchase, and also to create more relevancy during, let's say, post-purchase experience. And connected data could also play a role here in terms of, should the visitor be active in social, for example, and be willing, if that is detected at some point in the customer journey, that could be used at a point, for example, to make that customer into an advocate using social data in a social channel. So this ability to create the single view of the customer, to collect and connect data, and to understand what is the most effective data to use at the different let's say, stages of the customer life cycle, is sort of an essential capability and, let's say, strategy, tactics to have in mind. And to sort of address that, how to sort of prioritize these capabilities. One of the techniques and one of the sort of best practices that we work with is this sort of acronym that we call PI: potential, importance, and ease. So when you're designing personalization journeys and considering how to use personalization, where to use personalization, start by looking for, sort of the low-hanging fruit and the opportunities that have the greatest business potential. So that is that you want to help drive conversions, you want to help drive sales, so you would want to focus on possibilities where there's business potential. And then with regard to the importance of these opportunities, and you want to consider the ease with which you want to work with these. So opportunities such as paid online campaigns that are currently successful, these are opportunities that I would first look towards optimizing using personalization, because certainly if a campaign that is a generic campaign, a sort of one message for all those who respond to the campaign, is successful, it will only be made more successful if you can personalize that for specific visitors based on, for example, the specific keywords that they put in to use for personalization, not only the campaign. Certainly, this is one of the easy ways of generating results. But other examples, looking at top landing pages from organic search, certainly this gives a great ability to tap into the intent of visitors. For many companies, this is sort of the top the top opportunity for working with personalization. So that would be organic search, landing pages from organic search. And then as experiences evolve, looking at capabilities within, for example, segmentation, GUIP possibilities, time of day, device, the pages that a visitor chooses to view in a visit. These are all sources of, let's say, some of the easy opportunities working within personalization. And then, of course, based on, let's say, micro conversions or the easy interactions, the low commitment interactions that you may be providing or want to provide are a great resource to tap into working with personalization. So with that best practice, what I want to sort of move on to now is the idea that measuring the effectiveness of personalization. And here, what I want to sort of focus on is the idea that when considering the use of personalization, it's important to consider the time and the effort and cost that's required to set up and execute personalization. And herein, the availability to data is a real differentiator and a really important consideration. So to illustrate this, what I want to do is walk through an example where I show you how I set up one of the personalization examples that I showed earlier here, and then I want to show what it takes to basically measure the effectiveness of that personalization that has been set up. So what I want to do here is launch a video that will help me to explain this. So here, you remember that when I landed from the search campaign, the search advertising campaign, I landed on this page, and there was a generic spot that was changed to a campaign-oriented piece of content. And the way I set that up, it just takes a few minutes to do that, was that I went in and I configured that placeholder with the content that you see here, and I used a rule that lets me specify a condition that says that if the campaign Home for the Holidays has been triggered during the visit, or if it's been triggered within the past 30 days or the past 10 visits, then display the personalized content for this visitor. If the campaign has not been accessed, then show the default content. So the capability or the ability to set this personalization up just takes a few minutes, and you can dip into the historical data that a visitor may have revealed on past visits, and this is something that you can do out of the box. So as this, whoopsie, so sorry about that, we got to start again. So as this progresses, so I go past my, I have my personalization variant here. I came into the rules that you see here. I chose my rule and configured it 30 days or 10 visits, chose my content. And now when I save the page, I'm prompted to, if I'd like to, actually create a test for that personalization component that I've configured. And so once I submit this page to workflow for approval, then I'm able to confirm that I would like to create a test of this personalization condition. And what this test is going to do is going to create essentially an A/B test between the personalization variant and my default variant. If I had more than one personalization variant, it would create an ABC or ABCD test for me here. So now I want to walk you through the choices that I have to set this test up. So I have this approve with test option that I choose here. And when I do that, it brings up a dialog that enables me to configure my test for this personalization spot. So the options that I get are, first of all, I get some information that will tell me, based on the historical data for the page, how many days would be required to run the test and achieve a level of confidence. Chris, I have some options if I want to.
Chris, apologies.
Yes?
2 minutes left.
Okay, I want to sorry about that. Let's zip ahead here. Gives me the option to, yes, see the, just skip it ahead a little bit more. I can predict the outcome. I can select which variable I want to work with. I can choose how much traffic I want to expose the test with. I can select a statistical confidence that I want to work with. And then I can decide how I want to choose the winner, if I want to have the system choose the winner or if I want to manually choose the winner. So, and then I will just zip ahead here in the interest of time and show that once I have configured the test, I've pressed start, and now my test is running. So within 2 minutes, I'm able to specify my personalization variants, and I'm able to actually run a test. And this is a key differentiator and a key consideration when choosing how you want to work with personalization. So I then have a dialog that shows me the results of the test, and if I just skip ahead, then this is an example of a test that's been running where I'm able to get insight into the performance of the different variables, different personalization variables, and I can determine that performance based on the overall engagement of the different variables as well as the conversion rates for the different conversions that visitors may have responded to once they've been exposed to the test. So that was a little bit about how to set up personalization and measure effectiveness. And finally, before I hand it over to Paul, I just want to point out that research really confirms that companies that use personalization see conversion uplifts and positive business results using personalization. And I think that this is a key number to for those of you who are considering to use personalization to start with in building your business case. So with that, let me hand it over to Paul, and I will just select him and make him the presenter here, and I will do that coming here. So Paul, here you go. There you go, Paul.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Welcome everybody else. Thanks for coming along to this. So in the interest of time, I'm going to try and sort of get through this as quickly as I can. But today, really, I'm here to put some of the stuff that Chris has been talking about into the real world where we've been working with clients. So I'll just introduce myself. So I'm Paul Stephen from Sagittarius. I'm CEO of a digital agency. We're 22-man digital agency, and most of our work is specialising in Sitecore. We've been around for ages. We've got like 30-odd years, so we've got lots and lots of different clients and lots of different brands. And on the Sitecore platform, we've got several, of which quite a few of them are in the travel sector, but some are completely not. They're in the corporate sector or B2B. So it just puts a little bit of that in context. But what we do most of the time is work with our clients, and have been for some time, working on we work with our clients to build a business case for personalization. So a lot of what we're doing is helping people understand what, from a business point of view, you're trying to achieve X. So this is how we're going to achieve that. How does that break down into strategic objectives, which would then lead to particular marketing objectives and activity, and then so how does that then distill down into further digital goals? So how many people are we trying to get to a particular place, or how are we trying to engage with people? You know, so this is something that we do all of the time. Now the title of this presentation is what is personalization and why should I care? And ultimately much of what we're doing all the time is about increasing revenue. And so I thought I'd just share with you the way that we kind of try to articulate that really in as simple terms as possible. So let's say we have a website that during a particular period is getting 200,000 visits. That's getting about 2,000 orders, so simple maths, that would be a 1% conversion. So therefore, if that was about £1,000 per average order, which is kind of maybe typical, particularly in the travel sector, that would then kind of be a sort of £2 million turnover. Now, if we wanted to increase that business to, let's say, 4 million, how would we do that? Well, the simple answer you could argue is to say, well, we increase the visits to 400,000. Well, the reality is that probably wouldn't work. Firstly, you'd have to do quite a lot of work to increase that traffic. You'd probably end up not necessarily increasing that traffic by such good quality traffic. So the reality is probably that conversion rate would go down. So arguably, you wouldn't hit your target. The other place of doing it is obviously just double your prices by changing the average order value. Again, probably not that practical to do in any market, come to that. So the other area obviously is to look at that conversion rate. Well, if you were to double that conversion rate, then that would also increase to 4 million. Now, if you were going to spend, if it was my money, and I've done this, so I know that in terms of where I was going to invest, increasing on that conversion rate is where I would probably most likely get a more guaranteed return on investment. But obviously the reality is you would probably use a combination. You would, for example, it wouldn't be unrealistic, if we were sitting down with the client and say, okay, you're getting 200,000, let's say we increase that to more like 250,000, that's just a 25% increase. Let's look at increasing that conversion rate. Let's be really modest. Instead of 1%, let's go for 1.25%. If we then looked at maybe increasing the average order value a bit as well, I mean, this is just for demonstration purposes, but actually those numbers I've just put there would then increase orders to 3,125, which actually, if we did all that maths, sorry about the maths, that's actually 4 million. Now, all of those figures there are actually quite they're not unrealistic. So this is the way we would work with people, and why looking at how we convert people is so important, because of the sort of return in investment it might provide. So we're going to talk about a case study for skiweekends.com that in a while. It's a case study from last year, and we won lots of awards as a result of it by doing this sort of stuff. And we only did the basics. It's a small tour operator. We used the Sitecore platform to do this, and they got great results, which we'll talk about in more. Equally, Sitecore thought so as well and shortlisted us, and we won lots of awards in their own awards, comparing the site to lots of other Sitecore sites. So we're very proud of that. So, like I say, this presentation is called What is Personalisation and Why Should I Care? Well, I'm going to hopefully try and bring that to life and why you should care. But let's start at the beginning. So personalising, but personalise what? And this is the issue. It's all very well going, okay, we're going to personalise things. We're going to change the banner ad on the landing page, or we're going to send people custom emails. But why? What are you actually hoping to achieve by it? You need to understand what's happening on your website, what's happening in your emails, what's happening on social, to understand where people are falling maybe out of the funnel, your conversion funnel. So the essential part is data is key. So I mean, this photo, I took this last year. It was a CeBIT, a big show, a big technology show in Frankfurt. We were exhibiting, and this hall is absolutely full. I don't know if you can see in this picture, but all of the little tables there are all a separate little software companies selling some sort of means of data collection. So there's a million ways you can collect this data, but as Chris was trying to make the point, it's very important that is all kind of very joined up. Now, I just wanted to pause slightly on terms of what is personalisation. Sometimes I just call it segmentation. Now, there is a sort of difference, obviously, but what I wanted to make the point is that what I'm talking about is dividing our users of the site or our database into what you might call buckets. Now, those buckets might be, thousands of people who've done a particular thing, or certain thousands of people who we got from a particular database or whatever. But I think, and depending how we sort of slice and dice our data, those buckets might be one person, but essentially we're dividing people up and trying to treat them differently in a particular way. Now, to decide how we're going to divide them up, the criteria we might use to filter them can come from all sorts of places. Now, the challenge here is obviously where all those places. Chris is trying to sort of make the point really is that actually from a customer's point of view, they may use your website, they may do that on the desktop, they may do it on their mobile, they may use your social channels, they may go into your store, you may have them in your CRM. And all those things at the moment are silos for you. They're all separate things. But from a customer's point of view, and this is what's driving this, is the customer's expectation. They expect that, in fact, if they've bought something off you before on a website or in your shop, when they go on their mobile, if they go there again or go to any of those other sort of channels again, they expect you to know them now. It gets annoying if they don't. So in a way, this idea of personalizing and understanding who your customers are is going to become more of a sort of a barrier to entry, really, and maybe just hygiene in terms of the channels that you use. In terms of where you might be right now, I know some of you on the call possibly not using Sitecore, using some sort of other sort of platform, but essentially data is going to become the most valuable thing that you have. and data is one of those things that builds over time. So you know, you may have a database already. You may have a load of emails, a load of names, or you may have people who've registered on your website, or their fans in Facebook, or whatever. But you need to be able to start getting these things connected together, and you need to start learning what people are doing. The reality is, people don't just go to your website once. They don't just come to it, hit the buy button, and then move on and never come back. What happens is people go there once, they go away, they come back, they do something else, and over time that data sort of builds up. And as much as you know, initially you probably got more implied data than you have implicit data, explicit data, because you'll be just looking at what they're browsing and starting to build up a picture of the kind of things that they might be interested in. But our job is to try and combine that with explicit data by asking them deliberate questions, or if they've actually made a particular purchase, or we now know their name and their email, or things they like on Facebook, etc., and build all those things together. And then that helps us to build up a real picture. I mean, if I just sort of slightly strangely here maybe go to the real world, personalisation has been around for a long time. It's one of those things that actually in a real store environment we've been doing for ages. Just as you come into a shop, if you're there for the first time, someone will help you and they'll take you through a process. But if you're somebody who's been there before, they will know that, or you will have made that clear, and then they will treat you differently because they don't need to sort of start from the beginning with you. And if they did, they treated you like an idiot who'd never met them before, let alone if you were a sort of regular customer that they knew, they would consider that rude. Well, on the web, we're quite often doing that. People are often treating you like they've never met you before and treating you in the same way as everybody else, and it doesn't make you feel very valued as a customer, and really isn't the way forward. I think we're moving into a world now where actually the idea of converting more is about sort of growing the business. Well, that's fine, but unless we seem to have gone through a period of time where with things like Google AdWords and selling online, everybody is just competing on price, and rather than marketing, we seem to have moved to a position where we're not marketing, we're actually just selling. We're just promoting. We're trying to just get our product in front of them and not worry about the price. And you know, to sort of illustrate my point, if you take something like airport car parking, you know, you could argue, well, what's the right price to pay for a car parking place? Well, the reality is there isn't a price. There's lots of different prices, and there's a different price for different people depending on what you want. You might be happy to sort of pay a low price and get there 4 hours early, get in a bus and have your car parked a mile away from the airport and then get in there. Or you maybe just be wanting to pull up outside and go straight in. And you'll pay a different price for those different things, and different people want different things. And that's the point about personalization. And if you're selling something that people want, they will then pay more for it. So we need to sort of forget what we do, move on from selling, move to more a position of selling value and marketing rather than just promoting something. So, the next stage in terms of personalisation for me is particularly with holidays, and holidays is a great sector because they're sort of a customer journey usually takes a long time. They do a lot of researching and all those sorts of things. And for them, the experience is not about actually going on the holiday. It starts here. It starts on the website. The experience of particularly most buying processes, not just in the travel sector, is from that initial touch point, doing the search, finding a website, how easy it was to find what they needed, the process they went through doing the booking, and then how you dealt with them afterwards. And this is another area where personalization is absolutely essential. It's not just that beginning, that acquisition and conversion part. It's the whole journey. We're trying to build a customer lifetime value here, and we're trying to sort of grow the business from existing as well as new clients. Now, we sit and work with lots of clients all of the time, and I'm showing you this funnel here, which is starting from a sort of typical journey, which is the starting with the customer has an initial need, then they're aware of your branding, your brand or your product, then they go through a process of researching, then they might compare that with other clients or other websites, then they have a sort of stage where they're I'm now going to make my decision, then they actually make a purchase. And this for me is only the beginning of the process. There's lots of things we can do along the way to improve personalization, but obviously there's a whole lot more that happens after they've made that purchase. So particularly in the travel sector, where you could say the going on holiday is the use bit in this segment, the period between purchase and use, there's a huge long period there where people have paid for their holiday but they haven't travelled yet, and there's opportunities to upsell them, there's opportunities to get them excited about the holiday they're going to go on and things they might need to know. And these are all things that where you should be treating a customer very, very differently to how they might be if they've just arrived on your site. So the next stage would be sharing. So when they're out on holiday, making sure that they share that they're there, liking the experience they had, and then that's how we build them into what we call raving fans. One of the things that we do with clients in terms of how we get to people at this stage is we often work with them on how we're going to look at all those different channels, all the different channels they might use, and at what stage in the process. I've just kind of put a couple of screen grabs up here photos of some workshops we've run. And along the top of that screen, you can see the various point in the funnels in some of these photos. And down the left, we've got all the different channels, and all the cards that are on the page are all the areas on a site that we can already see that they use a device or a goal on their site to actually to measure where someone might be in the funnel. But as you can see, it's all very top left. They're using the website. It's just during the acquisition and research stages. All the post-it notes are actually where we actually have identified there are other channels or other points in the conversion journey where we should be using certain things. And this is what we tend to find with clients. We have to look at the whole journey and all the different channels. It's not just about the website. It's potentially about social. It's about email. There's potentially areas of direct mail and point of sale that are equally as relevant in terms of looking at how the experience could be personalized. So just to summarize that, really, personalization is not just about when someone lands on a landing page and making the website changes, they move around it. It's about all the channels at all the stages. So the obvious ones are a website, how we might segment for email and maybe for search engine optimization and paid search. But there are a whole lot more other channels that could be used and could be tailored and could be personalized to improve conversion, to improve retention, and to make them your biggest fans. One of the ones I wanted to touch on quickly as well is email. Email is something we've all used for a long time, and email marketing is quite common. But in terms of how we segment it and how we use it, very much underutilized within the travel sector. Like I say, the email you get often when you book something is just, hey, this is confirmation of your booking. There's so many other areas where email can be so powerful in terms of cross-selling or upselling and getting people excited about your product when they're on holiday or just before they're on holiday, just sending them, oh, this is arriving tomorrow, you're flying tomorrow, here's just the essentials you need, here are the sort of things that you and then obviously when they come back, encourage them to give feedback and all those sorts of things. There's so many other points in the chain. Again, in social media, exactly the same. We did a white paper last year. If anyone wants to reach out to me, we can forward it to you. We can download it from our website. But essentially, when we looked at what conversations are happening in social media, nobody really uses social media to say, I need a holiday, where should I go, etc. But everybody uses social media to say, oh, well, I've booked, and then through to more, I'm on holiday, look at it, isn't this great? Look, people love to show off, and then they get back and they share their photos and tell you how wonderful it was. So that, so actually trying to encourage people to use social media to do the bit at the beginning is probably you're sort of flogging a dead horse, you're pushing a water uphill, whatever analogy you want to use. Whereas actually people are quite happy to do it when they're on holiday. But if we take as read, actually, that most people accept that they're heavily influenced, particularly on social, by what they see their friends do and where you go on holidays, as much driven by where, you've seen your friends have gone or you fancy the look of it. This totally underlines why you should be using social media to encouraging people who are at that point in your buying process. They've actually bought, they're already an existing customer, getting them to share that. So this doesn't happen with just the travel sector, but any sector as well. Just encouraging people to share the love is really, really important. It's a long-term game, but it is very important in terms of driving long-term sales. That's how we create raving fans. So I'm going to now just show you before we stop for some Q&A. Should have said earlier, actually, we are having some questions at the end. You can use the chat feature of GoToMeeting to send us your questions, and we'd love to hear from you. But I'm going to spend 5 minutes now just going through a quick personalization example for our clients, skiweekends.com. So Ski Weekends is, unsurprisingly, a ski weekend holiday travel company. They do 4-day, 5-day short breaks to all over the Alps, about 32 resorts. We've been doing marketing and digital work for them for about 7 or 8 years. And they are obviously being a travel, that's a sector, but ski is a niche within that niche. So they're selling a product which, I don't know, is a kind of niche within a niche. So potentially there's a glass ceiling to the amount of customers that there are, and quite typically they're trying to convert customers who might have not expected to go away for a weekend. They might have expected to go for a week. You know, the ski industry is a lot bigger than just the weekend market. So it is about conversion. So I'm going to use some of their figures. These are rounded down for easy maths, but you'll recognize some of them. So their website a few years ago now was getting about 200,000 visits, making about 2,000 bookings, which is a 1% conversion. So this was where we were at. This is what we made the decision. Well, what do? Do we go and get another 200,000 visits, or do we, or do we look at conversion? It was kind of that simple, and that's the road we went down. So this was the choice we made when trying to choose and going over to Sitecore with this client. So first thing we did was look at the sort of traffic. We could see that it was massively mobile and tablet. Bear in mind, this is 2 or 3 years ago now, so that was already the case then, and is very much the case with a lot of people now. So it's very important from a design point of view that we made the site not only mobile responsive, but on the desktop and tablet, very sort of finger friendly, and things like search were a lot more easy to use, because essentially a travel website is about being able to use it and search it and find the product you want before you hit buy. So we come up with all sorts of interesting different devices like price grids like this, which is an old idea in a new fashion, and ultimately we were just driving people to the search results where they could then find what they wanted. That's really what a travel site is about before they can perhaps hit the book now. So we're trying to find ways to reduce friction. So we did that certainly with the user experience. The next thing we're able to do with things like Sitecore and it's similar to the example Chris showed there, was effectively if someone's just clicked on a Google AdWords campaign promoting an Easter break, then when you come into the site, then change the dates, change the location for that destination. If we know where they're coming from, well then let's just update the departure airport for one that's near them. If we've got other banner ads on the site, then let's just change those so that we're not trying to, so we're cross-selling them something that might be relevant, rather than if they came in for a coach trip trying to sell them a sort of 4-day trip to a 4-star hotel in Valbazare. It's just kind of, we know a little bit about what they want, so let's respond to that. Ultimately, this was all about getting them to hotel pages, and as a result of doing the stuff we're talking about, making the search easier and sort of pre-filling things in when they're coming from adverts, we pretty much reduced the bounce rate by 22%. The holiday search, the amount of people actually doing a search, increased by 7%, and ultimately the amount of people getting to a hotel package went up by 32%, which is quite significant. The next area I wanted to dwell on was social. So social media, ski weekends, skiing rather, is very sort of, it's a very active area in skiing. People like to show off that they're skiing. So again, using things like the ability to use social channels to authorize to sign up for newsletters. One of the other key things that we did was encourage people to like us on Facebook. Well, that's nothing new, you might argue. But what we did was we said, well, okay, we won't do that yet. Let's when someone arrives on the site, how are we going to encourage them to like us? Well, let's say we'll give them £10 off or something like that. But what Cycle has is this ability to score people when they start making their way around the site. So a number of engagement value points, as this screen is showing in front of you. So what we did was we waited until they'd browsed around the site a bit before we asked them to like us, and then when they came back, if they exceeded, as you can see here, sort of 25 points, it would then say like us on Facebook and we'll give you £10 off the head on your first order. So doing stuff like that, rather than give away an offer as soon as they landed on the site, was very significant. In this particular instance, it over doubled the amount of people signing up for Facebook. So now SkiWeekends has a very healthy Facebook community. The last area I wanted to dwell on really was the email. I talked about it earlier, but one significant area when we looked at was how we dealt with people on email and at various points in the journey, be it when they just made a booking and afterwards. Really important that those emails were mobile optimized, and the amount of click-through and response rates was just, you know, more than double, more like 4 times once we did that. The other thing that we did was, and the video was just showing that there, was improve the customer service questionnaire so that you could just get an email, you very quickly were able to click on a number from 1 to 5, and what that did was it fed straight back into the form on Sitecore, which is one of its key features, and it immediately captured that data, and then that gave us star ratings that we could feed into the Sitecore site immediately as well. So we were using personalized emails going out to people at the right time. We were then able to easily, from just one click, input that into the Sitecore database, which then the staff could then see on graphs straight away as to what the feedback was for the weekend that just passed, and it instantly updates feedback on the website as well, and in this instance then avoids this client having to use something like TripAdvisor where it would be relevant. So sorry, I'm just going to go through to the next page. I'm just repeating myself, sorry. So all of this work in summary is a combination of things, obviously, but ultimately this, bear in mind this was a year-on-year comparison. Pretty much the year before was same product, same sort of prices, etc. But by doing this stuff to the website, the amount of increased online booking went up by 55%, which is kind of huge. And the amount in terms of growth in business that year was 16%, which, in terms of ROI and the amount of money that was spent on doing that project, it was a bit of a no-brainer. And that's continued to grow since then, obviously. So just to recap before we have a bit of Q&A, so my review of my bit really is, yes, you absolutely should care about personalization. It is one of those things that is a hot topic, but actually so few people are doing it, and we would really urge you to do it because it is a bit of a no-brainer, as those figures I've showed you today I've tried to show. It does work with this. I've showed you the SkiWeekends example, but we've got lots of other examples like it, and it shouldn't be that difficult to do. But it does mean you have to start. It's different for different people. What you might personalize, be it B2C, B2B, has to be done in a different way. So for us, it's always about starting with the analytics. There's lots of data. One of the great things we do with people even before they've replaced their site with Sitecore is you can start tracking usage of the current site, so you can feed that into your user experience planning. So it ultimately is about knowing your customer. You've really got to understand what they want and what they really want. The analytics is going to help you understand that, really. And it's not just about the beginning bit, the acquisition and retention. There's so many things that could be personalized. A classic example is people being tried to websites or social media or retargeting advertising, trying to sell you something you've actually already just bought. It's just so insulting. So you know who I am. I've just bought something from you. Don't try and advertise it to me again when I come back to your homepage. Treat me differently, please. And it's not just about web and mobile. There's so many other channels, be it even apps or retargeting advertising, social. So it's more. Sitecore has this great ability to try and bring all these things together. Be it from your CRM, Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, any of those sort of things. Bring them all together and then you can properly do this properly. So that brings me to an end, really. It's time for me to sort of say thank you and then hopefully hand us over to any questions. We've got 5 minutes to spare, I believe.
We have a couple of questions here already. One for Chris. What kind of conversion rate increase do you see for customers using personalization?
That's a good question. Well, for example, a project that where I've helped a customer for the past 10 months really start from scratch and start from really no implementation of personalization, no knowledge of how to work with personalization. 8 months ago, and now in the latest round of personalization that they've worked with, we took the 10 best examples or the 10 best results, and the conversion rates ranged from 26% to 205%, and that's uplift. So that's the uplift that personalization provided compared to, let's say, the default experience. And these are a variety of types of conversions. It's a global brand marketer, so there were calls to action like become a member, buy product, interact with customer service, chat, email, and so forth, as well as continued engagement. So focusing on some pages where there's high bounce rates for visitors from certain channels. The idea was to increase engagement on those pages, and that was also personalization was used to increase conversion rates there. So that was one example. I mean, a good example. But generally, this 19% that research shows that most companies achieve is definitely what we see and beyond.
Right, thank you, Chris. A question to Paul now. We only have a small team. Will this take a long time to do?
It's a good question, actually. We certainly something like Ski Weekends. I mean, we work with lots of different size companies, and nobody has lots of people really kind of ready to do this. But it is very important that you do prioritize. Ultimately, all the work from a development point of view, or just the time that people put into it, is only worth doing if the return on investment is there. People used to ask a similar sort of question to that when talking about, well, why should I spend all this time on social media? Whereas now nobody really questions that they should be doing or using social media, whereas there was a time where people were questioning the value of it at all. In terms of the amount of time, there's obviously a process we go through to identify where the key points are in a conversion journey, and we usually do that through workshops that I explained earlier. And after that initial work has been sort of done, the actual setup of the personalization is meant to be fairly straightforward to do in terms of measuring the goals. In terms of defining the profiles that you might personalize something for, this is where Cycle's feature of profiling somebody into a bucket or a segment or a particular profile, as Cycle would call it, is so important, because if you had lots of little individual rules where show this or hide this based on one particular piece of interaction, that could get very confusing. Whereas actually if you define some clear sort of rules and how you're going to treat people, and a classic example or a basic sort of example is that idea of, okay, this is somebody who's this is their first visit to the site, this is somebody who's been here more than once, this is somebody who's bought something from us, and those three, for example, would be a great place to start, because those people are quite clearly in a different place with their relationship with you and could be treated very differently. And it's also very often the classic Plato's law of kind of 80-20. You've got to go for the low-hanging fruit first. I mean, Cycle call it PI, potential impact, and E. So it's how can I easily identify these people? Is it going to actually have a big effect if I do if I do it, or it's maybe what's the potential in that particular sector? Sometimes it might not be about volume in terms of number of people that you're going to convert, but you might have a few people who are clearly quite different, and if we did personalize it for them, it would have a big impact. So yeah, it is something that does take time. It's going to require some resource to look at this, analyze it, and do some of the A/B testing. But the return on investment is where it's very easy to justify that, and that's where we try to work with clients so they understand, well, if I'm going to commit a person so many hours a week or whatever to this, what's the return on investment going to be?
Right. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Paul. Sorry. Next question to Chris. What are the different types of digital personalization?
I think briefly, in general, there's if-then personalization. So if a visitor has clicked on a campaign, then show a particular piece of content or potentially hide a piece of content. If a visitor has subscribed to email, then don't show the visitor the subscribe to email call to action. Show them a call to action that is sort of that would require an increased level of commitment, but now that they've demonstrated that, so show them the next call to action, for example, join the customer club. And then there's so that's if-then personalization, a few examples, and then there is sort of what you could think of as behavioral personalization. So based on the collective behavior that I performed in a given visit, do I match a pattern, a behavior pattern? And if I do, then show me a particular piece of content or call to action that's relevant. And that mechanism is sort of like based on my collective behavior compared to a number of different patterns. Which pattern do I match most closely? So that's sort of algorithm-based personalization, or also known as behavior-based personalization. So those are briefly the two types of personalization from a technique point of view.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. And next question now to Paul. What is the single best argument for my boss for our company to start using digital personalization?
Single best argument. There isn't usually one. Obviously, the main one is always about growing the business. That would be the number one. But actually, there's so many other benefits, not just always the initial sort of financial value in an e-commerce path. For example, customer satisfaction is a massive important part to it, really, in terms of the relationship you build with the customer ongoing. So it might not necessarily be just the personalization of the initial acquisition of that new client. It may be you'll be using you to look after clients much better, which will then in turn lead to them using you